computer. All right. All right, my friends, thanks so much for being here today. We got an exciting episode of interviews with Tom Cowan he has written many books, actually. Well, a few wonderful books. The one I just got done reading was this right here, Human Heart, Cosmic Heart, that he published, say 5 years or something like that, Tom? When did you come up with this?
Yeah, 5, 6,
okay,
4, 7, I don't know.
But a number of years. The next one I'm going to read is Cancer and the New Biology of Water. And then we got this one, which I'm stoked to read because of, as you all know, my take on the jabs. And I can't wait to read this one as well. But this one, I want to talk about the heart. And so, Tom, thanks so much for coming on board. I'm not going to go into your too much of your personal life just because people should know you. But let me just real briefly, Tom, explain how I came to know who Tom was. I was watching Michael Muschel or something like that at the High Intensity Health YouTube channel. And you did an interview with him, Michael, I can't remember his name, Mike something, great guy, great YouTube channel, High Intensity Health. I said, and your whole topic on the heart as a pump and your kind of take on that, I said, man, I never even thought about that. And that, I tell you, man, that made me go down the rabbit hole of researching you and find out more about you and all that. I was like, I never thought about the idea that the heart might not be, is more like you said, a ram pump. I thought that was fantastic. So welcome aboard. If you don't mind, just share just really what you're doing right now. And you don't have to go too deep, but just tell everybody who you are, if you would.
So my name is Tom, and I was a family doctor and bunch of different places for about 37 years. And over the course of that, I ended up writing about 6 books, and then things happened and I decided not to do medicine anymore. And now I'd say the thing about me is I've spent most of my career looking into what we all know is true. It's a little bit like, I think it was Mark Twain, I'm not sure, who said, it ain't what you don't know that gets you, it's what you know for sure that just ain't so. And so I've heard a lot of things over the years that are supposedly true about medicine and biology, and most of them aren't true.
Yeah.
And you know, some people say to me,
hold on a second, Tom, let me get my dog out of here. Sorry about that. All right. Sorry about that dog interruption. Anyway, so keep going, please.
Some people say, you know, how can so many things be wrong? And I'm to the point now where I'm not sure I can think of anything in conventional medicine that's right. There probably are some things, but not very many. So the book you're talking about was The Heart.
Yeah.
And that it really boils down to 2 basic points. One was is the heart a quote pump? Now let me tell you what I mean by that, because whenever you do things like this, in other words, talk about what's real and what isn't, it's very important to make sure you get the words right. So we're talking about a pressure propulsion device. In other words, just to put it simply, the reason the blood moves is because it's being pushed by the heart. That's what I'm talking about. Exactly. Because there are obviously many different kinds of pumps.
Yeah.
And so I'm talking about the reason I was taught in medical school, it's like 5th grade, I don't know, some one of those grades. The reason the blood moves is because the muscle of the wall of the heart squeezes, and that pushes the blood, and that's why the blood moves. So that was the first thing. And I can, if you want, I can explain why everybody will see in 15 minutes or 10 that can't possibly be true. The second one was equally as if you ask everybody on the street and every cardiologist and every family doctor, why do you get heart attacks? Everybody says the same thing. They say because you have these 3 coronary arteries and they get blocked with plaque. Now they may have a different idea why they get blocked, but that's different. Everybody says they get blocked with plaque. The blood can't get through. downriver from that blockage, there's no blood, there's no oxygen, and it dies. And that's what we call a heart attack. And I can tell you that that's completely not true either. And I think I can prove that in another 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And so then people will know that the two main tenets of modern cardiology, essentially the function of the blood, the function of the heart, and why we get heart attacks is simply not true. Now, that this is not just a theoretical thing, because if that's not the reason to have we have heart attacks, then obviously stents and bypasses and statin drugs and vegan diets and all that make no sense, because they're all about unblocking your arteries. And if the arteries aren't your problem, then all that, as we now know, there was a major study, first time blinded study, the stents 8 weeks out, same result. And the title of the article was "Stents Proven Useless," which is interesting. There's about $5 billion, I don't know exactly, of stents put in a year in the United States. And the science is they do no good. They don't prevent heart attacks. They don't make you live longer. They don't reduce pain. There is no benefit that you can demonstrate from a stent or a bypass in the scientific literature. That's just the facts. So you can say, well, why do I say this? The reason is because I'm just trying to describe what's true.
Yeah. So let me ask, so here's what, just read your, so I went, my blood pressure was high a little bit, and my LDL was a little bit high, and my doc immediately prescribed a statin for me. And and like this before I come across you, it's just a couple, 2 months ago, I guess. And there's no way I'm under God's green earth I'm taking the stupid statin. And people I don't care what people do, but I said I'm not taking it. But right out the gate, she prescribed that, and I said I'm not taking it. So I'm reading your book, and you talk about the astronaut guy, I forgot his name, who had written a book about Lipitor, the brain thief or something like that. It's the same thing. So I started going down the rabbit hole of statins. I'm like, the people want to put it in the water, just like you said in your book. And I said, this is like fluoride. It's like, then you talk about, so I guess my question is how did you kind of come to the idea, like, wait, if the heart, we've been told is a pump, and what made you say that? Where did you kind of go off the deep end? Where, not when I say it with nothing but respect, but where you said that's not the true story. How did that flow for you? Because that's incredibly interesting.
I mean, I just asked the question, and I can walk you through exactly what high blood pressure supposedly is.
Well, go back to your thing about the heart being a pump.
In order to understand high blood pressure, you have to understand the heart isn't a pump, and then you have to ask the question, what moves the blood? Yes. So let's go through that,
please.
So I sometimes have a diagram here, but I think your listeners can picture this. So imagine you have a heart, like draw a little circle, and then you have vessels coming off, and those are the arteries. Mm-hmm. And then it goes to the capillaries where the oxygen and the food is offloaded, and then goes back through the veins back to the heart. Yep. Right? You with me?
Yep.
So that's the diagram. Now, we want to say, what is the velocity at each one of those places? So you can measure that. So interestingly, the velocity, the speed of the movement of the blood is the fastest as it goes into the heart, right? Sorry. And it's the same speed as it exits the heart, right? And then it goes slower and slower and slower. And then it stops because it has to offload, gas and food.
Okay.
And then it gets going again, right? You with me?
Yep, absolutely.
Now picture this. So here you have, like, if you could imagine like a water system on a farm. So you have the top of the hill, and then it goes down to a pond, mm-hmm. and then it goes back up to the top of the hill, right? where would you put the pump?
Right. Down.
At the bottom, right?
Right.
Right? Now, you could also say, what is this pump doing if it's not making the blood go faster? Right? And why would you need a pump when it's already going fast? The analogy that I sometimes give, it's like if you get on a bus in San Francisco and you want to go to New York, and the bus stops in St. Louis to offload passengers, and then new ones come on.
Right.
I can tell you, if I want to get to New York and there's no engine in the bus at St. Louis, I'm not getting on the bus.
Exactly.
Right? So anybody would put the pump where the water has stopped, the blood has stopped.
Exactly.
Of course. So I'm just talking fluid dynamics and logic here, right? Okay, so that's one thing. So that made me think, well, the pump has to be where the blood is stopped at the tissues where the capillaries are. Okay, so that's number one. Now, number two, when I look at the outflow tube to the heart, so we're talking about thousands and thousands of miles of blood vessels, right? And we have a 1 pound organ that's supposedly generating enough pressure to push this sticky fluid, right? It's got stuff in it. And the stuff, like the red blood cells and the platelets and the white blood cells, are approximately the diameter of the vessel, right? The vessel is like this and the red blood cells like that. So that's a hell of a push, right? And thousands of miles, and then it stops, and then it gets going again. How can that all be from a push from above? Right? Now, I had a friend who measured the amount of velocity of pressure it would take to squeeze a water to make it go hundreds, thousands of miles. And it's like 3,000 times more than you would get by squeezing, a muscle. But here's the interesting thing. So there's an outflow tube of the left ventricle. It's called the aortic arch. Think of it like a McDonald's arch, right? Yeah. So pump, right? And then it goes out the arch and down to the body, right? Yeah. That's what you can see in the anatomy. So I used to work in a cardiac cath lab when I was a medical student. And so we put the dye in, and you see the dye going from the left ventricle out the arch down to the body. Now, imagine this was a garden hose, right? So you have a garden hose shaped like an arch.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you turn the hose, the spigot off, yeah. And then you turn it on full blast, right? And the arch is like this.
Yep.
What's going to happen to the arch?
I don't know.
Yes, you do. So here's the spigot.
Right.
It's off.
Right.
So the arch is like this.
Right.
It'll straighten.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. It's going like that. Exactly.
Right. It straightens.
Yeah. Right. Right.
Right. I mean, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth.
Because it's got all the pressure. It's going to happen.
Yeah, it's got the pressure. It'll straighten.
Right. Exactly.
You know what happens to the aortic arch during systole, which is the pushing phase? It bends in.
So it's adding the pressure, and instead of flattening out, straightening, it actually
bends in. And I remember I saw that so you could say, so what's the difference between me and everybody else? I mean, I don't know, but so I saw that as a 20-some-year-old, and I said to the cardiologist, why does it bend in? Because that doesn't make any sense, right? And he said, because it does. And I said, well, I know it does. I just saw it does. But he said, well, that's an anomaly.
So he said, I got to get so
here's the point, Josh. Yeah. Nobody disagrees that it bends in. That is not the point of disagreement. But my point is the only possible explanation for that is that it cannot be a push from here because then it would straighten.
Right, exactly.
And so it bends in. And so you put those two things together. One, there's no way this thin-walled organ could push that much pressure to make that sticky fluid go around and then stop, right? And then get going again. And it's all from this. And then when you look at what happens at the heart, if you had that much pressure, you would make the tube straighten. And the tube does the opposite. So there's other things too, but based on those two things and a few others I wrote in the book, I concluded that it cannot be a pump. And I had to say that the place where the pump is has to be at the capillaries, right?
It's like
where
a
the pond
is. It's got to be in the bottom so you can pump.
Yeah, it's got to be at the bottom.
Right.
So then I spent, 15 years trying to figure out what was moving the water, the blood. So here's what I found out. It turns out, here's another myth. If you say to a scientist, what are the phases of matter, right? Yeah. Everybody knows, solid, liquid, gas.
Exactly.
So which one is Jello?
Combination of water and...
There is no combination. It's a multiple choice question. Solid, liquid, gas. Is it ice? No.
Right. No.
Is it water? No.
It's not gas either.
No. It's wrong. There are 4 phases of water. One is a gel phase. Now, whenever you have a protein interacting with water, it forms a gel. And the gel is negatively charged. It's just the nature of the gels. Now, imagine this. Let's say you take a beaker of water, right? So beaker of water, and then you suspend a horizontal hydrophilic tube in the water. You with me?
Yep.
The nature of that will be that it will form a negatively charged gel, and the positive charges go into the water part in the middle.
All right.
You with me?
Yep.
The positive charges repel each other, and it starts the water moving.
Just
you can see it in a system. And then interestingly, you can say, so where's the energy for the charge coming from? Because we're talking about separation of charges. We're talking about creating a battery, right?
Yes, exactly. So where's the battery coming from? 100%.
Okay, so you take this beaker of water and you measure the velocity, whatever. And then you put it in a lead box and it stops moving. And you take it out of the box and you shine the sun on it and it starts moving. You put it on the earth and it starts moving. You put your hands on it and there's a sort of electromagnetic field from your hands and it starts moving. And then, interestingly, you put your cell phone against the beaker and it stops moving because the cell phone inhibits the ability of water to form a charge. Now, once you get this charge formed, like if you're in the sun, it charges your body, standing on the earth, touching your wife or whatever, even if you put your dog next to it, or as I like to say, most dogs, not all dogs, most dogs, it makes the flow better, right? Now it starts flowing, and then like a river, you go from a wetland and it coalesces into a central river, goes faster and faster and faster, right? Just because of compressing the river from a wetland into a river, faster and faster and faster up to the heart. And that's how the blood
increases the velocity.
Yes.
Right.
Just because if you compress water from a lake to a pipe, it'll just go faster based on that. And so then it goes up to the heart, and the heart acts like a dam. It stops the blood.
All right.
And it holds it in a holding tank. And the holding tank expands, right?
Okay, right, got
right?
you.
Because it's flexible. It is a muscle. And that builds up positive pressure on the water incoming side. and a vacuum on the other side, right? The vacuum sucks the arch in, it creates a vortex, and the blood falls out down to the the tissues through the aortic arch, which is sucked in. It goes out down to the body and starts all over again. So that exactly describes what happens, how it works. Now, why do you get high blood pressure? Now, imagine you have this system and you need flow, right? You need to bring blood and oxygen and food to all your brain and your legs, etc. But you don't stay in the sun, you don't go to the earth, you put your cell phone on you all your time, all this stuff. And so now you have weak flow. Now think about this. If you have a garden and you have a spigot and you have weak flow. And I said to you, Josh, the only thing you can do is change the garden hose. You can't change the flow. What would you do?
The only thing I can do is change the garden hose in order to get increased flow.
And so, because you need to water over the other side of the garden.
You turn on the spigot more, right?
No, you can't.
Oh,
you can't change the flow. All you can do is change the hose.
So you'd shrink it? Is that what you do?
You would narrow the caliber of the hose.
Right. You'd make it less, you'd make it more compact. Exactly. Okay, right.
Right, from this.
Right, exactly. Yep.
Just think about if you're going to shoot a spitball.
Yep.
If you have a spitball and your straw's like this, doesn't go very far.
Yep.
But if it's like this, it goes really far.
Absolutely. Gotcha.
Right? Yep. So that's what your body does. You don't have any flow, so I'm going to narrow the pipes, and that's going to increase the flow, because not to rag on you, but you're too stupid to increase the flow. So I'm going to make you have high pressure as a therapeutic response, so at least you have flow. And I say to you, yeah, but Josh, that's going to kill you eventually. You say, I know, but the guy won't increase the flow. I got no choice. So that's when I say we don't have diseases. That's the wrong word. We have strategies which are brilliant. Making you have high blood pressure is a brilliant strategy to get more flow. Now, you don't want to have to put your body to have to make high blood pressure. And if you don't, which is how I did medicine, I would just tell the people to increase the flow. And then the pipes would relax. And then they have more flow without higher pressure. And so then they were essentially cured of high blood pressure. Now, if you just try to open the pipes with blood pressure meds,
right.
then it's never going to work, because that's not the problem. The problem is the flow. And so if you go to your cardiologist and say, how many people have you cured of high blood pressure with blood pressure meds? You know what the answer is?
Zero. Right. So literally, then what we're doing to solve this is even worse, because we're not getting the electrical charge we need via the sun, the stimulant of human interaction by the ground. You see what I'm saying? So basically, we're saying we're going to bypass all that. We're just going to give you some high blood pressure medicine to open up the pipes. But you're like, but I need the natural electricity flowing through my body to open up. Does that make any sense?
Yes, exactly. Once you have that and you understand, but the key is you have to understand where the flow comes from. You see, they think it's from your heart.
Yeah, right.
But it can't possibly be from your heart. And once you realize that from your heart, then you have to figure out, where is it from? It's from this charge.
Right.
How do you get the charge? Well, you could just set up a system and measure the flow. And if I yell at it, the flow goes down. And if I put it in the sun, the flow goes up. And that's probably what happens with us. It's what happens with trees. Trees are just pipes, vertical pipes.
Right.
They have a charge, and the pipe and the water goes up to the top of the tree.
I love the
This is how nature works, but we don't understand it, so we make the situation worse.
what I mean, it's even worse now, Tom, because there's don't go outside, stay inside, wear a mask. I mean, it's genius how evil this is now. But so I just, it boggles my mind. But anyway, going back to the cardiologist, you said, he goes, that's just the way it works. Well, does he have any curiosity? I mean, I don't understand. So where are these guys that say, I'm curious as to why this is happening, but they don't have the time? Are they just not curious enough to ask about what you said about why does it go like this when it should be going like that? You see what I'm saying? I don't get it.
You know, people always ask me, why do they think like this?
Right.
I always say, I don't know, ask them.
Yeah, but there's gotta be, I don't know. It's nuts to me.
All I know, Josh, is I don't care what the right answer is.
Yeah.
If it's the heart, fine. If it's the electrical current, fine. Like, I don't have a dog in this fight. And they seem to have a dog in the fight. Like, I stake my reputation on the heart. Like, what do I care? You know, it's
yeah, but I mean, you had to be frustrated, Tom. It's just like you had to say, I just want to freaking pound heads because no one one cares. You're like, how can you go without any curiosity? I'm 51.
Frustration wouldn't get me anywhere.
Yeah. How long did it take you to get to that feeling though? Because I'm sitting there thinking, why? I mean, how long did it take for you, Tom, growing up, I think you said in Detroit or something like that. And, how long did it take for you to say frustration doesn't get me anywhere? I'm just going to, are you still fighting?
My wife tells me every day.
So if the electrical, it just seems when I was reading your book, and then the thing about the tree cracked me up too, because of course, you can't prove the gravity, but they'll continuously stake their thing about gravity, and then we have trees that grow up well beyond what they're supposed to do. It's just a beauty of nature. It's just so fundamentally, it's incredible.
It is.
We think we're so damn arrogant that we have all the science, and I don't understand. Well, again, it's frustrating. I was like, look, and I love God, and I'm a complete believer in God. And I said, for me, it's a Christian God, but an intellectual, intelligent design. But I can't believe the arrogance that says we have the answer. Just follow what Fauci says or follow what Francis Collins says, and we'll all be saved. And you just see the numbers just on heart disease, not heart attacks, because you made a very good point separated two. In 1900, we had 106 people die of heart disease per 100,000. In 2019, we still have twice that. And so now I grant you there's more tuberculosis and pneumonia and all that, but we still have a pretty crap load of people dying of heart disease with all the modern scenarios, with all the modern money we're spending. And yet that's still by far and away the largest killer of human beings in the United States. And it's just like, it's gone down a little bit, but I mean, you think it's almost like there'd be some money, and I hate to even accuse people, but it's like they don't want to know because they can't get paid if they find out, getting some sun, hugging your daughter or something like that can help with the electricity.
That's the second part of the book, which is, you can actually demonstrate that coronary artery buildup of plaque, in other words, blocked arteries, is certainly not the predominant and isn't even the cause. So let me walk you through that a little bit.
Yeah, please.
So the first way I got into this, so we're told in medical school and subsequent, all the rest of medical, that all of the blood to the heart, it goes through these three main coronary arteries, right? There are little collaterals, which are tributaries, but mostly three main ones. If one gets blocked downriver from that, you get a heart attack.
Right.
So try to stay with me with this. Guy comes into my office, and I was an ER doctor for a while, so I had tons of people, same story. Oh, I was 50-year-old guy, was more or less fine, walked up this big hill, started having a little chest pain,
Right.
go to the cardiologist, and he says, usually wags his finger,
Right.
you have a 95% blockage of your coronary artery. If it blocks anymore, you're going to die.
Right.
I heard that 1,000 times. Okay, let's dissect that a little bit.
Right.
Number one, if it's true that all of the blood goes through those coronary arteries, that means this guy has 5% blood flow to a part of his heart, right?
Yep.
How did he walk up that hill?
Exactly.
Right?
It doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, and then you tell me, not you, but
Right,
if he blocks from 5% to what, 3%,
right.
that's going to kill him.
Right, exactly.
Right? That's ridiculous. Like if you have 5% blood flow, you've got no blood flow. Therefore, there's no way that part of your heart can die, can be alive.
Right.
So I started thinking, this is crazy. Like, there's got to be some other way the blood gets to the heart, or this has nothing to do with it. And then I started and I read every single study that actually did autopsies on people who died of heart attacks, right? So these are the worst of the worst.
Yes. Right, right.
Joe Blow's normal, has a heart attack, and he's dead. The highest I found of people who in that situation had a blocked artery was about 40%.
Wow.
The lowest was in the teens,
Right.
13, 17. So now it turns out that if you read the biggest study ever been done, and it's by a guy named Beroldi, he said 41%, he did autopsies on people who died of heart attacks, 40 years, Italian guy. He said 41% have any blockage at all in that artery leading to the part that's blocked. And of those, half of the blockages came after the heart attack, not before.
Whoa. So the blockage came after. I just gotta
After.
get this in my head. After they had the heart
After.
attack, which killed them.
Yes, that's what he proved.
So inherently, the blockage did not lead to the heart attack, and those, 20%.
Right. So now we have it down to 20% of the people who die of a heart attack actually have a blockage. The other 80% don't. So that was another clue. I couldn't find any other higher number than that. So, and this has now been acknowledged by the European Heart Association and other, that at least 60 to 80, they say, of heart attacks have no associated blockage of any coronary artery. So I'm not the only one who's saying this. Now, if that's true, then you would think, if it isn't true that blocked arteries are the whole problem, then you would think if you do a stent or a bypass, that would solve the problem.
Right.
But again, they've been study after study, and it's actually like illegal for a cardiologist or cardiac surgeon to say this stent or bypass will prolong your life or prevent you from having a heart attack. The only thing they can legally say is this will get rid of your pain.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Now, they did a study, it was published in the Lancet, I think 2018, where they took 50 or so people with chest pain. Half of them they did stents, half of them they told them they did a stent, but they didn't.
Right.
And after 8 weeks, they had the same amount of chest pain, which means they proved for the first time that it doesn't prolong your life, doesn't prevent heart attacks, and it's no better than a placebo at getting rid of your pain. So that convinced me that there is nothing to this. And then if you go to a video called heartattacknew.com, you will see, like the old doctors say, old cardiologists say, it turns out the people who have blockages have less heart attacks than people who have blockages.
Whoa.
And the reason for that is because we make bypasses.
Yeah, right.
So if you have one artery that's blocked and doesn't kill you right away, which almost never does,
Right.
your body sprouts all these blood vessels And you can actually see that on catheterization.
When you put the dye in, because I found that I watched that video of that guy, Nude, I think is what it was.
Yeah, Stroker.
Yeah, right, exactly. So when they do that dye, Tom, where they're putting the dye in, does it automatically show the corollaries, or, the collateral?
No, that's the problem. It doesn't show the collateral vessels, and so that fools them into thinking they're not there.
Well,
but they see the blood go by the blockage, and there's no other explanation, but there are, tributaries or so-called collateral vessels, and those bypass it. So we do our own bypass. So the question then is, what causes a heart attack?
Yes.
It's not a blockage. And there's a very simple explanation.
Can I interrupt real quick too? So just because the 20% of the people who had a heart attack also had blocked arteries, you can't make a correlate. Well, not you, but you can't make a correlation or causation that the blocked arteries are what killed the 20%. You see what I'm saying? Just because they have the blocked arteries, it's kind of like, you got killed in a motorcycle accident, you had COVID. We can't say COVID killed you. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
That's what what they do. But all right, anyway,
even 20%, right? You're exactly right. You can't even say that's what caused the heart attack. All you could say is 20%. At least they had a blockage.
Right.
Doesn't mean that did anything, because it probably didn't. And so then the question is, what causes the heart attack?
Yeah.
And here's a very simple. So you have these heart tissue, right? Just like you have liver tissue and brain tissue and heart tissue, and it needs to get oxygen and food and make energy and, et cetera, right? So that's just normal. Now, we have a system, and the heart cells use the most energy, heart in the brain, of any tissue in the body. So it's highly energetic, and it also has a backup system. So if there's enough oxygen, it does aerobic respiration. And if you run out of oxygen, it does what's called fermentation. And if you essentially poison your heart muscle over and over again, and there's a lot of ways to do it. One of them is with electromagnetic fields, or negative emotions, or not eating right, or not moving, or drinking bad water, or poisoning. There's any number of ways of
smoking
yeah, to a certain extent. You can poison your ability to generate fuel. And then what happens is you go anaerobic and build up lactic acid. Now, that's the same thing that happens like in your leg. So if you build up lactic acid in your leg, you have cramps and pain in your leg, and then you stop moving, and the lactic acid gets flushed out. And this was the third reason why I started thinking that has nothing to do with the arteries. And that was the following. So if I asked you, do you know of anybody or heard of anybody who's had a heart attack?
Yes.
Lots, right? Dick Cheney and Clinton and a lot of people.
Yeah.
Okay. And here's the next question. Do you think the blood vessel, the arteries, are the same all over the body? In other words, do you think the heart artery is made of the same stuff as the spleen artery and liver artery and lung artery and leg artery?
I think. I mean, that makes sense.
Of course.
Yeah.
There's one artery.
Right.
Now, here's another thing. Do you think the blood in your coronary arteries is basically the same as the blood to your spleen?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. There's no theory otherwise.
Right.
Now, so you have an artery leading to your spleen, right?
The same blood.
The same blood is in your coronary artery.
Same artery, same blood.
Same blood.
Yep. Gotcha.
So if it gets clogged up in your coronary artery because there's too much cholesterol, you would think the cholesterol would clog up your splenic artery.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
same artery, same blood.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, it's clogged, it can't go through, right? I mean,
right. And if it's clogged because there's something too much, like LDL,
in
your blood, and it's the same LDL going to your spleen, you'd get blockages in your spleen, and you do. You get plaque buildup in your splenic artery. Okay. Now, how many people do you know who've had a spleen attack?
Anybody's had a spleen attack. Never heard of it.
Right. I worked in the ER for 10 years. I never heard of anybody. I've asked probably 50,000 people in lectures. Anybody out there know anybody who had a spleen attack? You know how many people raised their hand?
Nobody.
Nobody. But if it's just the arteries, then why don't you get a spleen attack or a liver attack or a foot attack? It's got to be something different about the heart and the spleen. Here's the difference. If you have the same problem of going anaerobic, right? You build up lactic acid in your spleen, your spleen stops, like your leg, flush it out, you're good. So if it happens in your heart, your heart can't stop because the blood has to go through it all the time, has to expand and contract. And so you keep building up lactic acid more and more. And that buildup of lactic acid makes the tissue acid, which then causes what we call necrosis or breakdown of the tissue. And that's what we call angina or heart pain. And then a heart attack means it actually destroyed the tissue.
I gotcha.
Now, when the blood is going through there and it meets this area of dead tissue, right? So it already died. Then, like a river, if you put a dam in the river, upriver, you'll get debris buildup, which is why you get debris buildup after the heart attack, not before. And so the whole thing makes sense.
So just on the spleen again, the reason we don't have a spleen attack is because it's able to get the lactic acid removed. You know what I'm saying? Even though it's clogged up.
It stops. You don't need your spleen for 10 minutes.
Okay, gotcha. But the heart you do, so it can't.
Heart and the brain you do. So we have strokes. That's a brain attack. And a heart, that's a heart attack.
Gotcha. Okay.
No other organ has an attack.
And so the idea would be the reason that the attack occurred is because the dead cells are like, I mean, they're building up and they're, you know what I'm saying?
No, the reason it occurred is because the lactic acid, the acid build up, and it's just like putting battery acid on a tissue. It first causes pain and then it causes death to the cells.
And then
very simple.
And then the thought would be that is what then leads to the dam with the debris. Is that what leads to the artery being clogged because it happened after? Okay.
And this has been proven for about 70 years because they showed that the oxygen level doesn't go down necessarily in the heart attack tissue, but the lactic acid always goes up and the pH always goes down. So that proves the mechanism is the acidification of the tissue because of damage to the respiratory system. You know, you poison it with nicotine or EMFs or bad food or statins, or that's why statins cause heart attacks.
And so it all comes back again to we're treating our body like a garbage pit. You know what I'm saying? And that's actually literally we are killing ourselves with a diet, our lack of being outside, breathing. I mean, all that stuff. I mean, I read the book, so I get it. But I'm just like, I'm that. And then we're just saying we want a pill to solve it, or we want a stat or a stat.
I'm not saying that, but some people say that.
No, what I'm saying. But sadly, Tom, I think a lot of people say, I don't want to fix it. Just give me something that will fix it for me. You see what I'm saying? Like, give me a pill, give me a mask. I mean, all that.
But here's the interesting thing. There actually is a medicine. It's called Strophampus.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. Yes, I did want to talk about that.
What does Strophampus do? It's very simple. It gets rid of the lactic acid.
Okay, now
if there's no lactic acid, then there's no pain and there's no destruction of the tissue, and then you don't have chest pain or heart attack.
But so we have,
Very
I mean,
simple.
so, but it's like, where's it from? It's from like I forgot.
It's from a West African tree called Strophampus combi, and it makes seeds in a pod. It's sort of like coconuts.
Oh.
It hunt thousands of these pods, and they all have seeds in it called Strophanthus seeds, and they have an active ingredient called wabaine, and the natives call it the gift from paradise because it gets rid of this poison that builds up in your tissues. And so you have less strokes and less heart attacks, and it makes your tissues more resilient to being polluted and destroyed and, all that stuff.
So was there like a tribe in West Africa that never has heart disease, and someone was able to put two and two together and say
most traditional indigenous people have no heart disease or cancer ever. These are modern diseases of modern people living ridiculous lifestyles.
So the exact what I'm saying, I completely agree.
That's a known fact.
It's a sad, the standard American diet. You've heard that? We're sad. I don't know if you heard that, but that's on that how you say it?
Strophanthus.
So Strophanthus, and you take what do you take, a teaspoon a day or something like that, or what do you do?
I mean, it comes in a liquid and it comes in a powder.
Okay.
And so just let me say, it's a little bit self-serving because I've been interested in Strophanthus for decades, and there was no source of it in the United States, and we worked with two companies, and so we are the distributors of Strophanthus in the United States. So you could say, well, this is self-serving, but I did it because
You're right, it's self-serving. By serving humanity, we're self-serving.
Yeah, I mean, I had case after case of people who, you give it to them and they couldn't walk, and now they can walk and ski, and we documented the improvement in heart function and, et cetera. And so we couldn't get it. So we had to develop a system of, importing it. And, that's what happened.
And that's on your website, which I haven't ordered yet, but but I was going to ask you on the Strophanthus. So like, do people, they take that along with maybe changing some of that standard American diet too? You know what I'm saying?
There's a whole system. I mean, you basically, you have to live like a human being.
Yes, exactly.
Or a man or a woman or whatever you want to say.
Right.
And that means you move and you eat real food and you have loving relations and you don't suffocate yourself with a plastic diaper over your face and inject yourself with all kinds of poisons. And this isn't like, some sort of esoteric rocket science. Like, human beings, living things, need to be eating real food and getting in the sun and moving and having fun with their friends and their wife and their children and their neighbors. I mean, to call that like somehow radical,
I know, it's crazy.
It's bizarre.
You had said, I want to read you a quote from the book, which I thought was the most fundamental thing you said here. It said, grandparenting may be the final best gift we ever receive in our lives. It reconnects us to a life in a way that's largely faded with the joy and excitement of childhood. I live now in the flow of the incredible gift, hang out with my wife, tend my garden, ask my patients about their lives, and build farms out of blocks with my grandchildren. I can't help but take stock. I thought that's fantastic, because so many people in my business, I'm going to work a couple more years, what I call the crappy old job, work a couple more years, and those couple more years never, they don't get a chance to throw up their grandbaby. And it saddens me to know I got 4 kids, Tom, and my oldest is just 21, but I just breaks my heart that they're so focused on the modern, industrial age, like you talk about, and that they just rob themselves of the life of just being with a grandchild. Can you elaborate on your just love of having your grandkids at your side? How awesome is that?
Yeah, I mean, and the good thing is we are many of us who see through this, what's happened over the last 2 years, are being cured of the failings of the modern lifestyle by having it supposedly taken away from us.
Yeah. Oh man, that's a great way to put it. Yeah.
And so it's really a gift because, you know, nobody ever put on their tombstone, I
Right.
wish I hadn't spent so much time with my family or grandchildren.
I know.
If they did, I'd love to see it because I don't know anybody like that. So, right. I mean, you know, and I'm sure you know about the whole economic system is a fraud. You know, you can get into that too.
I'm reading about the House of Rockefeller right now, and I just this is from
it's all just a bunch of hooey.
Yeah.
And so we have a chance now to reevaluate and retake our lives in a new way that people haven't done for a really long time. And I hope everybody really thinks about what's happening and what they can do to reconnect with themselves and nature and friends, all these things we've talked about.
Are you optimistic? I mean, you got kids and grandkids. I mean, are they gonna, you know, I mean, what do you think? I'm from Maine. I'm naturally pessimistic, but you know, I'm kind of fired up.
I'm from Detroit. We are the most pessimistic people ever, right? You can't grow up in Detroit and think the world is great. As if you ever look around. But I don't, Josh, I don't spend any time thinking about that. I think, what is most important that I do right now? What do I need to find out about or address, or who do I need to talk to? You know, I don't know what's going to happen any more than anybody else does. But I know that the narrative is crumbling.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
It is crumbling.
Oh.
Now, that doesn't mean there's not going to be a new narrative, like they're going to shut off the internet, or they're going to, you know, take, you know, the food, or they're going to say the cows have COVID, and so they're going to kill.
Or growing backyard chickens will lead to salmonella. Did you see that? The CDC a couple years ago. I was like, and they just push it out again, Tom. There's like the same freaking regurgitated, oh my goodness, backyard chickens. I was like, this is the same article you did just 3 years ago. Oh man, I just, I can't. These guys are nuts.
Don't believe anything.
I can't. If you do, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to say. That's good stuff to say. At the end of the day, the Russians invading Ukraine. Oh my goodness, we better. It's just we're this propaganda from the top all the way to the bottom, which is just now. I know you got to go, but it's just like. That's what frustrates. My biggest frustration is how come more people can't just don't have the curiosity, man. I don't understand. I'm like, these aren't stupid people, but I don't know, whatever. I can't control it. It just frustrates me when you got a cardiologist or you got in my line of work, and you're like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, why don't you just investigate this a little bit? And maybe they will. I don't know. I just maybe videos like this will help. I mean, if it wasn't for Mike, whatever that guy's name at High Intensity Health, Mike something. And I would never come across you. And if I would have never come across this book, I would have never thought about the idea that heart as a pump is, let's just put it this way, it can be challenged and even in polite society without sacrifice.
Nonsense. It's nonsense.
Good stuff, Tom.
All right, Mike. Sorry, Josh. That was
right on. You just real quick. Anything you're working on right now, books wise, or soon to become? And I'll put links to all your stuff in the show notes.
Yeah, I'm going after all the things that we believe in biology that aren't true, like cell membranes and protein receptors and synapses and neurotransmitters and nuclear pores and ribosomes and all that's make believe.
So, man, so you got a big plate of research to do. That's fantastic. And you're putting out, you got Rumble channel, you got YouTube channel, you got blogs, the whole thing. So, God bless, man. This has been fantastic. Like I said, I'll put links to the show notes. I'll email you when we're done here, when I post this up, and I'll send you the link if you want to download it for your own thing. Whatever. It's all good though.
Okay. Thanks, Josh.
Thank you, sir. Thank you now. Bye-bye.